Sorry, I took a pause there to start recording the session. Okay. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Zakia Haq. I am the Executive Director of the Association of Muslim Chaplains. I've been in this position for just under a year now. As some of you, but probably not all of you may know, AMC, the Association of Muslim Chaplains, is a professional membership association of Muslim chaplains in North America, so United States as well as Canada. We have about 250 members across sectors. We have healthcare chaplains, we have university chaplains, prison chaplains, military chaplains, and a group that we call community chaplains, which is kind of a catch-all for every other kind of chaplain. And so, chaplains who work in mosques alongside imams, who are working in sort of the corporate setting, police, fire stations. So it's sort of a very diverse and growing group of chaplains. But right now it's sort of under that umbrella of community chaplains. Just to tell you a little bit about the series that this session is a part of. So the intent, it's a five-week series where we are each week discussing sort of one aspect of the various aspects of Islamic chaplaincy as a profession. And so the intent and the goal is to provide greater insight into what each of those steps entails, what that adds to your sort of toolbox and training and professionalization as a Muslim chaplain. As some of you, will probably know better than I do, that a lot of the training of chaplains sometimes happens on a responsive or an as-needed basis. So your institution or your field requires so-and-so training or education, and so, if I as a chaplain want to serve in that field or in that sector, then I will do the steps, the training or the education that's required for that sector. And that may or may not match, and it doesn't match, what other sort of fields of chaplaincy require. And so, but AMC's goal is to really elevate and advance the field of Islamic chaplaincy by ensuring that chaplains are trained, prepared, and supported to provide the highest quality spiritual care. And we hope to do that by establishing a baseline of training, education, and professionalization for all Muslim chaplains, regardless of institutional requirements. And so the previous two sessions, so this is a third of 5, the previous two sessions covered the educational requirements of being a chaplain. So we had, members of Islamic chaplaincy educational institutions come and talk about the various programs that are available to Muslim chaplains who are looking to begin their journey. Or to sort of supplement where they are in their journey. Future sessions, the subsequent 2 sessions will cover endorsement as well as traditional Islamic sciences education as other key aspects of being a Muslim chaplain. So today's session is going to be focused specifically on board certification. And so we have representatives here from the Association of Professional Chaplains and from the Spiritual Care Association organizations, both organizations which offer board certification to chaplains. And we will, following them, we'll hear from one of our member chaplains who has received board certification through APC as to her experience of going through that process. And so I will ask our 3 sort of guest panelists to introduce themselves, and then we can begin by, we'll begin by hearing from you, Stacy. So please go ahead and if you can briefly introduce yourselves, and then we'll go ahead and start your presentation.
Sure. So I'm Stacy Auld, and I am my role in chaplaincy right now. I'm the vice president of spiritual care for Houston Methodist Hospital System in Houston, Texas. I also am a board member for APC, and then one of my roles on the board is that I chair our commission on certification. And so I've been the chair in that role for a little over 4 years. And so just have the privilege of leading a commission of 12 people that alongside our professional staff in the APC office oversee our certification process. So good to be with y'all today.
All right, wonderful to have you. Thank you so much. George, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm George Hanso. I am the Director of Health Services Research and Quality at the Healthcare Chaplaincy in New York. And literally on the other side of my business card, it says that I'm the Director of Credentialing and Certification for the Spiritual Care Association, which is an affiliate of the Healthcare Chaplain. So it's really one job split. And I've been I'm actually, before all that, I was director of certification and president of the APC. Um, and um, and I run now the certification process with some other people. That's good enough for the moment.
Mhm. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome. And then Mira, if you can round out the intros.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna group me in with them? No way. These are like leaders in the field. I'm just a regular old lay chaplain.
No.
I mean, I studied Georgian CPE, so I mean, this is like. My name is Mira Abuelas. I'm a staff chaplain at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and proud and long-standing member of the Association of Muslim Chaplains, and happy to be here with you all today.
All right, wonderful. Yeah. Okay, so without further ado, I think Stacey, if you can begin the conversation for
Sure.
us.
Yeah, so I'll be highlighting, I think at a high level, hopefully I don't get into too much detail with you. When I do kind of candidates who are interested in the certification process, I do it with CPE groups or just other interested groups of people. It can easily do this in about an hour, but I'm going to do it in about 15 minutes. So I can make sure I'm just hitting some highlights, but I'm always available for additional questions, additional dialogue after it's over. But just trying to give a little snapshot of our certification process. So I am going to share my screen and use a slide deck that I normally use and pick certain slides to show you if that's okay. So, so everyone see this? Common qualification slide. Okay. So let me put it in presentation mode. There we go. Okay. So this one slide really kind of, again, puts the whole process together on one slide as far as what the requirements are going to be to seek board certification with BCCI, which is our affiliate organization with APC that is the credentialing body. So we have two different levels of certification right now. We have board BCC and then ACC, associate certification. And you can see the differences between those two really primarily lies in the graduate education number of credit hours and then also the number of required clinical pastoral education units. Beyond that, we still require the same amount of work experience of 2,000 hours post CPE training. So that's at least a year of work somewhere after your CPE training, and then the demonstration of 29 different competencies that is done in writing, but then you meet in person with an interview committee that also, if they feel like you didn't meet it in writing, there's an opportunity orally to demonstrate those competencies with the goal of meeting all 29 to receive the certification. So that is a snapshot of what we're looking at for our requirements. And then I have a few details on each of these areas. So endorsement is one of those components to be eligible for applying. So documentation of current endorsement, it sounds like you either already had or you have an upcoming session where you're talking about endorsement, but we have that as a component of our application process. To show that you are connected with some other organization that is part of your own formation and your tradition, whatever that looks like. And hopefully there's there was formation, some ongoing support. Obviously, as the APC, BCCI, we have many hundreds of spiritual faith groups that are on our list of organizations that have been approved by us to be endorsing agencies, but we don't monitor what the requirements of those endorsing agencies. So there's definitely pursuing whatever the requirements are for you to receive endorsement would be another kind of track that you're monitoring and kind of managing on your own. And so looking into that is something that I always tell people to be thinking about early on to see where they align with a group that would endorse them, because that will be something. We require endorsement because we believe that it demonstrates formation in a particular spiritual or faith group. It hopefully offers some level of accountability to the spiritual or faith group's ethics, morals, beliefs, and practices that will continue to shape the chaplain along their journey. Again, who can endorse you? If you wonder if an endorsing group that you're interested in being endorsed by is recognized by APC, it's as simple as calling our national office and asking if that particular group is one of our approved endorsers. We don't keep a running list on a public website for the pure reason of just like wanting to make sure we have the most accurate information and trying to keep a website kind of up to date with good contact information and a good list of places. We don't want to be putting misinformation out there. So it's just is easy to make a phone call to see if it's on the list. And then there's always opportunities for new spiritual faith groups to apply to be recognized by us as an endorsing group. So there's a process for that. If you were to come across a group that is not yet recognized by us, there is a process to help that organization consider if they want to apply to become recognized by us. For each component of our requirement, you'll see we have an equivalency process. So we have what our requirement is. So for endorsement, it is to be endorsed by a faith group or spiritual group that is already recognized by us. But we understand that there are some people that may come up against a situation where they don't have a faith group or spiritual group that is a formal group that aligns with their particular tradition or beliefs. And so we do have an equivalency process where people can apply for that. And we've probably had we added the equivalency process in 2019, and we've had around 25 chaplains pursue the equivalency process. It's kind of an essay process and a couple letters of support from people in your particular tradition that can attest to the spiritual tradition that you are a part of. And so again, if anyone were to come up against and feel like there's a roadblock of like, I don't have an endorser, there's not one on the list, there's not something formal enough for me to be able to help them apply to become a recognized endorser, I encourage you to just think about and inquire what going through an equivalency process might look like for endorsement. So the next piece that's a part of our requirements is your graduate level education. So right now we require for board certification 72 total semester credit hours and 48 hours if you are looking for the associate certification. And then we do require that at least 24 hours are within 3 of the 4 subject areas listed below. So a transcript is always required to send in just for us to see the number of hours that you have for your master's level degree. And we would be looking for classes and courses that you've acquired within your degree that fell into at least 3 of the 4 of these categories. So again, as of right now, I will be transparent. We have a task force working right now that is assessing our education requirements, the number of hours that we're requiring, the subject areas that we think are still really important for the formation piece. But as of today, this is the requirement. So a conferred degree in either theology, philosophy, or psychology. And then within that degree, we would need you to have at least 72 hours. And so let's say you have a 36-hour degree in theology of some sort or philosophy, let's say, then you'd still need to have 72 hours, but you don't have to have another conferred degree. You could just be taking classes that lead up to that 72 hours. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a conferred degree in one of those areas. And if that wasn't a natural 72-hour degree, then you can take other classes to just get up to that total number right now. The school must be accredited by the Council for Higher Education, and official transcripts are required. Again, equivalency is an option here. So for people who have acquired some formal master's level education that are from non-CHIA schools or from schools outside of the United States, If you were a part of a mentored education tradition, then there are just a different set of kind of forms to fill out to kind of show the equivalency of the education that we're looking for the application. So all of our worksheets and information about that, if you were to search on our BCCI website, there's a whole page that just says equivalency is the title of the page. And for each of these areas that I'm talking about that has an equivalency process, it lines out like what that means for each of those areas. The third aspect, so we did endorsement, graduate level education. Then the third piece is clinical pastoral education. So for BCC, we're looking for 4 units. For ACC, we're looking for 2 units, and they must be from a program that is approved by APC and BCCI. And currently, we recognize 3 different organizations. We recognize ACPE, CPEI, and then CPSP are the 3 current CPE providers that we recognize. And so your units of CPE would need to come from one of those 3 organizations. And again, there is some equivalency here for CPE. If one unit may be from if you took CPE from a provider that was not one of those 3 I just listed, you can have up to 1 unit from one of those other, but the other 3, or if you're looking for ACC, the other 1 definitely has to be from one of the 3 approved. Then the fourth aspect is the work experience. So you have to be able to show proof that you have worked 2,000 hours. It must be, it can't be working for your local faith group community in like a caring role. It has to be professional chaplaincy, but there are you could be maybe doing a second year of CPE. Like you've gotten through your 4 units and you're going to do a second year of CPE. That would count towards this 2,000 hours. There's also people that just can't find paid chaplaincy positions. And so if you're volunteering as a chaplain, but again, you have like a supervisor of you volunteering that can attest to the hours that you're doing as a volunteer, those can also count for your 2,000 hours. This just kind of reminds you that there's that equivalency place on the internet. And then the last little piece that I will talk about is this demonstrating 29 competencies section. So you've submitted your application, you've met all those other requirements. And so then it's time to think about what are the actual competencies that we're looking for to grant somebody certification. And so part of that application, it's all done through an online portal. Now you submit an autobiography, you submit 2 clinical contact narratives. So in CPE world, we think of those as being verbatims of a patient or a care receiving kind of interaction. Then we have our 29 competencies that are broken up into 4 different sections, which I'll touch on briefly here in a second. You write your responses to those competencies. You give examples of how you're demonstrating those competencies. And then once you've submitted all of that, we have 3 different deadlines a year that you can submit this complete packet. Then once your packet is complete, you've met one of the 3 deadlines. Then about 2 months later is when you'll actually meet with a committee. And those committees are made up of 3 to 4 board certified chaplains that have read all of your paperwork. They've read your autobiography, your narratives, your competency responses, and they have a rubric. The rubric is something that we make public to everybody. So anybody writing to these 29 competencies would want to use our rubric that's posted on our website so that you know exactly what we're looking for, what will meet our competency according to the rubric. And then the interview committee is using that same rubric to read your paperwork and then assess. Maybe you met 25 of the 29 competencies in writing, but they had some questions about the other 4. then your interview would be focused on those four, where they're looking for clarification and examples, because you can meet the competency either in writing or orally. So it's a combination of both your writing and your oral interview that would get you to demonstrating and meeting those 29 competencies. And the last thing I'll share is just there's some details about the length of the contact, narratives. This is the last slide I want to show. The 29 competencies are broken up into four different categories. So the first six are specifically asking for you to demonstrate areas of integration between theory and practice. So different theories are on ethics and how you put that into practice, or the theory of spiritual care. What's your working definition of spiritual care? What does that mean to you? And then how does that get practiced? So there's that theory integration section with six different competencies. Then the next section is about professional identity and conduct. And so there's a lot of competencies that help demonstrate just kind of your own self-awareness, your own awareness to social context and things like that. So there's a lot of just again, your own personal professional identity that comes up in those particular competencies. Then the biggest chunk, those 11 are professional practice skills. So those are very practical skills, like how do you give us a demonstration of how you're caring for somebody who's grieving. How do you advocate for um, a patient? How do you triage, things that are would just kind of really get into the practical skills of functioning as a chaplain. And then the last section is revolves around organizational leadership. So there's 5 competencies that, again, as a professional board certified chaplain, we believe that you have to be functioning at a level where you understand organizational leadership, you understand organizational kind of structure and how spiritual care fits into that structure within whatever organization you're working in. And how you see yourself in that context, how spiritual care is seen in that context, regarding their mission and their values and things like that. And so just really getting a feel from a chaplain to see, like, how do you understand yourself beyond your own practice, like within a larger organization. So those are the categories and the competencies. Again, all of them must be addressed. If for some reason you don't address all of them in that first application and interview process, then you can come back up to 2 times for a subsequent appearance. And when you come back for the subsequent appearance, the only thing that you're interviewing or you're discussing or that you've written about are the ones that were unmet from the previous interview. So again, if you go through an interview and the committee decides that you've met 25 of the 29, then when you come back for your subsequent appearance, then all the new committee would be working with is looking at your responses to the remaining 4, and that would be what your interview is. We give you your recommendation the day of the interview, so you know exactly if you've received you're recommended for certification or not, based off of how the committee assesses the meeting of all 29 competencies. So with that, I will stop sharing and pass it over. And then I think at the end, we'll have some time for question and answers, right? Is that how you want to do it?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
so much. Yeah, if anybody has questions directly for Stacy, just if you can hold on to them until the end, and then we will address all the questions. Okay, I will turn it over to you, George.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have an easier time. I'm glad Stacy went first because, as you'll hear, um, certainly on the requirements side, I'm going to divide this into requirements and process, qualifications and process for certification, because I think that makes it a little easier to understand and probably is the big difference between the two. But a lot of the requirements for the Spiritual Care Association really were drawn from the history with APC and and the common standards. So the competencies are that they read a little differently, but they're basically the same. I mean, it's the same categories. Let me go through a few things. The easy ones are um, endorsement. SCA does not require endorsement, and we could have a long discussion of why that is. It was decision we made with, not easy one, but because the essence is we felt that there was in there are too many people coming now who either don't have a faith group or they have a group that's different from the rest. Anyway, we don't require equivalency, and Stacy's done a good job of explaining what happens with the APC on that. The other things are easy. Are the 2,000 hours is the same. It reads in ours exactly like that, like it does there on the APC site. The It's 4 units of CPE. Again, pretty much exactly. We have a few more training sites that we recognize than APC, but otherwise it has to be CPE. People say, to have an equivalency, and I always say to them, there's the old saying, it's got to walk like a duck, it's got to talk like a duck, it's got to look like a duck, and then maybe you can get equivalency. Um, because we just, all of us, I think, treat that clinical training as foundational to what we do. And it's a model that goes back 50 years or more now. And that's just the thing that we as chaplains all have in common is that we've all done verbatims, we've all done those groups, and we've discussed what is going on. So you can get finagle around master's degrees. You can equivalency. Um, we're not. I don't think either of us are going to let you do much with CPE. You heard Stacy say you have to have a whizz's 4 units as well, and you have to do them, and you have to do them with recognized people. Uh, so we could talk more about CPE if you wanted. There would be a whole nother discussion just if you don't know what CPE is or how you do it. That's a that's a key. That's a whole session of itself, and have some CPE educators in here. Um, the uh, the master's degree, again, I think it's a master's degree. It's got to be within our standards say in an area germane to chaplaincy. Now, we tend to you know interpret that a little loosely, but uh, it still has to be. You can't bring us a master's in basket weaving. It doesn't work. It's got to be something that you can demonstrate impacts your ability and your knowledge of chaplaincy care. And now, it can be, as Stacy said, mentored, uh, mentored education, at least in part. And the other difference is that the requirement in SCA is 30 credit hours rather than 72. And that may make a difference to some. It may not make a difference to everybody. But the content needs to be the same. But I want to back up for a minute because I think this is where I want to get into the, the demonstration phase. The APC model is well tested. It's old. It's been around. It's produced thousands of chaplains, qualified chaplains, good chaplains. I would like to think I'm included in that, but you'd have to talk to my CP educator. He might have a different opinion. But it it's based a lot on what you know and what you are able to demonstrate before the committee. You'll find the SCA process, for better or for worse, and I'm not making any claim here, these are both great processes. And I tell people, the important thing is to do one, to get into chaplaincy. That's it. That's the big thing. Whether you do one or the other, I'm not going to argue with you about. But the SCA process is much more based on your ability to demonstrate what you know and what you can demonstrate about your ability to practice. And so, what do I mean by that? It means that the know part, the competencies are broken down into what can be demonstrated in writing in a test and what needs to be demonstrated by seeing it either in a verbatim or in a simulated patient review, as SCA does, that you can actually demonstrate that you can relate and you can behave as a chaplain, professional chaplain. So we have it's a test, it's a um, timed, self-proctored, multiple choice test that demonstrates a lot of the competencies that Stacy talked about. And we have a FAQ that lists what's in there, and it's all the topics you would kind of expect, or hope, ethics, grief, um, you know, leadership. What does it take to build a department? Um, all of those things that, yeah, we hope you would say, oh yeah, that's part of it. And they're multiple choice. It gets scored immediately before you know, put your turn your computer off. You have a score and you know whether you passed. And the other part is a simulated patient review. If some of you are familiar with that from medical practice, we've adapted it a little bit to a Zoom model. And what it is you as the candidate sit down in front of your screen like this. And what comes on the screen first is a referral. So it's just like you would get in your work. It's not paragraphs long. It's, a few sentences. Mrs. Smith has just gotten very bad news that she's got a pancreatic cancer. The doctor, she's very upset. The doctor asks that you go in and talk to her. That's it. So obviously, right then, you know that there's a lot you don't know. What is Mrs. Smith's culture? What is her religion? Does she have one? How important is it to her? Does she have family? What are supports? And then also, how is she doing? How can you be present to this person in this crisis in her life? And then that that visit happens, goes on about 20, 25 minutes. And then you sum up the visit, hopefully. And then the tape is reviewed by two or three, depending, experienced board certified chaplains who don't know anything about you except what they see on the screen. So you have to be who you are in that visit, just like you would in a real visit, and be present and compassionate to that person. And that there's behaviors, it's I think 16 or 17 of them, that you get beforehand and you know what we're going to score. And those are scored. You also then have to write a chart note after you're done. Um, and it varies. I should say we have three levels of certification. Uh, Credentialing, which is not certification. It's our associate chaplain, but it's called credential chaplain. So it's not, you can't call yourself certified. Board certified chaplain, which you've heard about, and advanced practice board certified chaplain, which is another level up, and the testing is more rigorous. The requirements are the same for you. It's a CPE, all of that, but the test is longer, has more elements, and the scoring for the sim patient review is much more rigorous. Things that we would tolerate in a BCC review, we won't tolerate um, in a APBCC review. There's also an APC has the same thing. So we have a specialty certification in hospice and palliative care, which goes beyond that, and APC has the same. We also now have a first responder specialty certification, which we're very happy about, and an advisory committee for people who are like first responders, fire chaplains, police chaplains, and again, the process is the same, but the content of your discussion and the knowledge is different. So, where am I here? I'm still got some time, um, but I think, as I said, I get to skip a lot of the the academic part, it's a CHIA. To mention about CHIA, the Council on Higher Education Accreditation, that if you're wondering about, well, how do I find out about my institution? It's all online. They have a database which is online. It doesn't cost anything to access it. You can go and see if your school is on that list or not. And if not, maybe you want to go back to the school and say, are you really not on it? Did I miss it? Was it the school called something different back then? All sorts of things can go awry. But that is an easy one to do. So let's see. Um, I think that's it. The thing that throws people, I think, in our process is the sim patient review. Because, but it's meant to simulate what you do in real life visiting at the bedside. Um, and I think it can throw people a little bit, but it's and we have it's the patient is a professional actor, so they are schooled. Some of them have done this for us for years. They know exactly what we expect of them and what expect to be a patient. And there are different cases. You get a case randomly. It's meant to be as as objective as you can make a test like this. You can't make it totally objective. But if you don't know anything about the person, or um, you're having to go into this cold, and if you're experienced, it's it's uh, it's it's obviously doable. We have a lot of people do it. Many people fail the first time, and you can come back. Also, three times. Interesting enough, Stacy. Uh, After three times, we say, no, you obviously can't do this. Uh, Back you go for some other training. But um, it's interesting that we've come to a lot of the same place. So I'm going to stop, and except to say, a part of my history that I didn't say until Mira spoke up is that I'm the founding director of the chaplaincy service at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. I was there for 23 years before I was hung up my beeper. Uh, I say it was when I stopped being able to run up the stairs with the residents uh, to a code. I figured it was time to go on to something else. But I love Memorial.
Wonderful.
So
Thank
that's
you so
it.
much. Yeah, and we're so appreciative to have your wealth of experience here with us today. Thank you, George. Okay, and also I just wanted to add a note. You referenced CP. So our session last week was on CP, and we had four
Okay.
CP
I forgot.
educators. Yeah, no, that's okay. But yeah, so I think hopefully, you know,
And those deserve sessions of their own. They're both. I mean, CPE is complicated, but it's there's no way around it. It was painful. Yeah. Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure we will have questions for you in a little bit. But in the meantime, if we would like to hear from Mira about her experience of going through the board certification process, and she is now a board certified chaplain.
George, you know who is still here?
Yusuf Hassan.
Yep.
Talked to him the other day.
Yeah, and he
He's at
invoked
he's
you
at
all.
our we he's at a funeral today, I suspect, for one of our beloved staff members, 30 years, director at Hospital for Special Surgery, Margaret Ottinger, is being buried today.
Mm, blessings to him and his family. Yeah, so your name still comes up often.
I was not that
Um,
bad.
no, no, never that. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, speaking of CP, that is like, you know, you got to do it before you get certified. And yes, it hurts, but it's so worth it. It really does kind of uh, test you. And so I'm here to speak about my own personal experience. Um, I did 1 year residency, 4 units of CPE, and let me tell you, by the fourth unit, I was like running away to my car just so I could lay down on the back seat and just like shut down for a few minutes. And that is not to scare you, but that is just kind of to normalize that it does kind of take everything out of you because you are, learning and practicing at the same time. And a lot of the learning is a lot of self-reflection and it's wonderful. I mean, I loved the classes, and I found that being thrust into patient experiences, um, just kind of like as a newbie, that was the more, I think, scary part for me. But it has built me up, and now I don't think there's a very rare occasion where I would feel like, scared to walk into a room. So it works. The board certification like process, in regards to, application and interview and all that, I got my master's in religion. So that is a different route than most of my colleagues went to seminary. I did not know I was going to be a chaplain. It was a happy accident. And so I was just studying religion because I loved it. And so I did have to do education equivalencies. To bring in some of my like non-academic religious learning, which I like thankfully had a dearth of and was able to do that, to align myself with like the standard, MDiv route. The writing was, I mean, coming out of grad school, it was just more of like that, just a lot of writing, and making sure that I covered the competencies that I needed to cover. So it did take a lot of like focus and time. But, once you start writing, everything that comes after is easier. But that's kind of the part that people might want to procrastinate on because it is a lot of writing, and that's okay. The good news is that the interview process was, I mean, was fine. After you've put in so much work, for me at least, into the reflection and the writing and the application itself, being able to kind of like verbally share that was in some way like a relief for me. It's like, all right, now I get to talk about it with like, the real deal chaplains and see where I stand. And I think, my advice would be to really bring yourself to it. I mean, George mentioned this. I think maybe the simulated patient encounters are like newer because I missed that. Was that always a part of the?
No, we still don't have that as part of the APC, so you wouldn't have ever experienced that with
Oh, okay.
George was describing that's part of the process for SCA.
SCA. Yeah. Got it. Yeah, I was like, oh man, that kind of sounds fun. It's like theater in a way. But and I took some acting classes in college too. So for me, it sounds kind of fun. But I think that kind of gets to the same central point of like, really be yourself, really try to just like stay calm, take your time. There is no rush, and people are, have dedicated that time slot to you. And if you need to take the full time, take the full time, take a breath. If you don't immediately know the answer to something, pause, say, you know what, I'm like coming at a loss right now. Can I think about that and come back to that? I mean, it is your interview, like make it your own. Don't think that you have to emulate any other person or follow any other standard, because this is your interview process. And what the panelists are really trying to gauge is who you are as a chaplain, as a spiritual caregiver. And the more of yourself that you bring to that, the more human you are, which is a good thing for chaplains. Am I right here? Because and so, it's serious, but it's like try not to take yourself so seriously because it might block some aspects of your personality that can shine through. um I think, you know I'm like happy to kind of belabor my own experience, but if we want to go ahead and just like go into question and answer, I think that might be more helpful for you all, because as of now I'm just kind of looking at your names, and I'm you all have been talked at for the last hour, so I would like to bring you all into the conversation, and it doesn't have to be a question for me. Obviously it could be for our esteemed panelists, but I'm happy to moderate that.
Mary, do you
Are
have to
the
read off the chat, or
Yeah,
is
I'll read it out to you all. Are the two certifications, SCA and APC/BCCI, equally recognized by institutions and employers?
um, I would say, in all honesty, at the moment, no. SCA is new, relatively. It started in 2016. We started certifying, and a lot of people don't know about us. So there is a chance that you can, honestly, um, apply for a job someplace and they say, we take APC and a couple of others, we haven't. They don't take SCA. Now, a lot of times when we talk to those people, they change their mind. But that is I have no idea what the percentages are at all. I guess it's 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 coming. SCA is growing, but it there is that gap still. And honestly, Stacey, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I would affirm that just because of your mention, just because of the time span, right? I mean, APC and BCCI has just been around for
50
longer,
years.
and so there are institutions who have always known that, may have some loyalty to that, but I think like my institution, Houston Methodist, I mean, we've had past presidents of APC. There's a lot of loyalty to APC, and so but we also, as a leadership team, about 4 or 5 years ago, went through the process of looking at our job description. And we added SCA as one of the recognized certifying, bodies. And so we currently have 6 or 8 chaplains in our system that are their certification is through SCA. So I think there's more and more institutions that are seeing that it's a different process, but there's levels of competence. I mean, the competency is still being required, right? So I've had some of the chaplains that have chosen SCA have gone because of different things. Maybe it's the education requirement or things like that, that they're just like this is their I have easier access to this right now, so I'm gonna do this. And so I think that yes, there's time that it'll keep growing in more institutions. But I think alongside with what George said, I mean, there will still be institutions who,
Hmm.
just because that's what they've always done, they will only recognize APC. And so it's behooves you, I think, as you're looking at institutions, to just be upfront and
Hmm.
ask about what certifications they require or they
Well,
acknowledge.
yeah, well, it took us years to get the VA, we're asking the government to change, in this case, the VA. That didn't come easily. But the VA now does recognize SCA certification, but it's only recently.
Mhm.
Yes. Next question. For the 2,000 hours, would my hours working as an education chaplain be applicable?
So do you mean can you say more about an education chaplain, like working as a chaplain for a university or higher education or something like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, hi. I have a per diem job at a hospital, but I also work as an education chaplain at a college, higher education institution. And I'm wondering if those hours would also apply.
Yes. I mean, yes, if you're that role that you have within that education institute is serving as a chaplain, then yes, those are would count.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Is the 2,000 hours requirement for both the organization after residency, or is it different for each?
So for APC, yes, your 2,000 hour kind of you can start counting hours after you've completed 4 units of
Right.
CPE.
SCA is the same.
Um, if someone did not go the MDiv route, are there opportunities for them to get certified? Hello? Bilal,
Yes.
you're
Yeah,
listening to me. Yes. You just have to
yeah.
do education equivalencies.
Well, and like on my slide and showed, there's even, a degree in psychology or philosophy. Like there's different degree programs that we've more widely just formally accepted, and then also have this whole equivalency process to kind of submit your work. For us, we're still kind of holding true to the number of hours and to the having some core education in those particular areas like world religions and sacred texts and things like that. Um, but we know that the long-standing kind of like culture of a master's of divinity is very Christian. It's very much so forming pastors and clergy for local church settings, and not necessarily forming you for chaplaincy in the world. And so I think the work we're trying to do too, even right now with BCCI and our task force, is try to really look at like what is it that we're looking for that's actually forming you for professional chaplaincy, and that's not necessarily a traditional masters of divinity. And so we're trying to get away from having that be the standard that we're always bumping everything up against, and really trying to rewrite the language and things so that it doesn't look like we're holding that as the standard. But so yes, there are many things other than an MDiv that you can do.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I don't know, Stacy, if you think about it this way, but I do. This is how the core courses that she talked about, world religions, and we have an equivalent series too. Part of the reason that's there is to make sure that if you have a degree in psychology, for instance, that you have some background in world religions, in theology, in something there to say that this is has a chaplaincy bent to it. And that's so, we're much more strict about those core things if we're dealing with a psych degree in psychology rather than an MDiv.
So exactly to your point, George, because I see Bilal followed up with, you know, sorry, I didn't mean to call you out like that. More
What's
of if
that?
you were listening to me, yes, but he wants a little bit more clarification about my experience. So
Yeah,
I
please.
had double majored in psychology and religion. So I was able to use a lot of my college education
Mhm.
in the equivalency route.
Mhm.
Um, Next question is, what are the key differences between an associate board certified chaplain and a full board certified chaplain in terms of job preparedness?
So I'll answer that, and I don't part of for me for us when we think about the difference between the two, it really has to do with the requirements. So um, not as many graduate level hours, right? 48 versus 72. And then only 2 units of CPE versus 4, which again, we do feel like that CPE, that clinical experience is where the a heavy part of the formation for professional chaplaincies is. And so if for some reason somebody only had those 2 units, then that's where we're kind of landing at that associate level. But then at the same time, we're still requiring that you demonstrate all 29 competencies. So you had to have some level of preparedness and experience to be able to speak to and demonstrate all 29 competencies, regardless of ACC or BCC. So I feel like the while some of the education or CPE might be, it is different. At the end of the day, like being prepared to function as a chaplain with some sort of credentialing like ACC, you still have to demonstrate all 29 of the competencies. It's not like ACC only has to demonstrate, half of them, and BCC you
Yeah.
demonstrate all of them. Both certifications for us you demonstrate all of them.
Yeah, I think we have the equivalent to associate in SCA is credentialed chaplain. But just like Stacy said, you have to take the same sim patient exam. The sim patient committee that reviews doesn't know whether you're going for a BCC or CC. They score it the same. So even though you only have 2 units of CPE, uh, if you read our page, it says that the credentialed chaplain, this is meant for um, maybe less intense environments, assisted living facilities, maybe a nursing home, um, maybe something out in the community that may not, require all the trauma ready or bells and whistles that a BCC or an APBCC has. Now, how people use it, we can't monitor, but um, it 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 is not a certification technically in our organization. Um, but it's for somebody who maybe wants to get into even doing volunteer work or something like that.
Mm. More questions, keep them coming.
I had my hand raised, so I hope it's okay if I just ask.
Oh my gosh, please.
Please.
It's
Now,
okay.
what's so funny, I thought that was a like decoration on your wall, like the hand.
Oh, I mean, I have a long son over
So
there.
funny.
I actually have a question for Stacy that I see that I know that APC did like this whole revamp of like the degree requirements, and I believe it used to be like 36 at least accredited, and then it bumped up to like the 48 accredited courses. And there used to be a white paper for like Buddhist chaplains. I also understand that as the Muslim community is moving to this MDiv model, which is very much like, as you said, based on this very Protestant Christian model. I'm curious about the equivalency process. It used to be done by this one chaplain in New York City. I don't know if it's still being done by him for Muslims, but just wondering if there is kind of more eyes on that equivalency process. It was just so difficult to navigate through that of just like emailing this one person who's kind of the I don't know, gatekeeper is a strong word, but
Yeah,
this
no, I hear
vanguard
that.
of like the equivalency process. Um, and that I just like gave up. I was like, okay, this is just too much to kind of document. And I understand, like graduate education is serious, and but I also did my CPE in Arizona, and I would contend that despite the fact that I did not go to an accredited like institution to get my education, I do have a master's, but I don't have the 48 or 72 credits in an accredited institution. Um, that because of this, like kind of who your committee is and who, what kind of education you had to be the pastor, and that it's not equivalent in the sense that somebody could be studying at an institution in kind of the Bible Belt or and not to like demean in or any way, but where I felt that I had more awareness about other traditions than my peers who were, even if they took a world religions class, was just really centered on just some really basic stuff. And so there was no way of being like, okay, this world religion class is like kind of better compared to what other kind of training do you have. So it was just a very demotivating process. I have like emailed SCA and like that's the process I'll be moving forward, but I would still like to explore the possibility of the BCCI, especially if that is like the educator route, for example, really fascinates me, but I know that that is a barrier because I don't have those 72 credits.
Mhm. So then, well, thank you for sharing your experience. So we do part of the work of the commission, this 12-person commission, we do have somebody who chairs the education review process, and then she has like 3 or 4 different people that are also volunteering to be a part of that review. So in one sense, yes, there is still a person that's part of our commission that has kind of our guidelines and how we lay out what our equivalency process looks like, that uses that guidebook and those guidelines to be able to help walk people through, applying for equivalency when it comes to education. So, so there is still a person that's doing that. It's not the same person that I think you're referring to from a while back. So one, I would say that. Two, I will also just be super transparent with you that even though I chair the commission, because somebody like Sherry, who I'm speaking of, has been over chairing this education equivalency review process, she is way more in the weeds on like how that's being done, how it's being looked at, what the communication and process is like with the candidates seeking all of that out, and is doing that on a weekly basis with different candidates. And so I don't know what else to tell you to kind of like help you know exactly what might be different from what it was 2 or 3 years ago to what it is now. But would just say that like personally, if this was something you were still interested in thinking about, then I would definitely want to connect you with Sherry, who is overseeing that process at this point.
Thank you. Thank you. I
And just
appreciate that.
just just let me add, I mean, this is having chaired two certification committees. There's got to be a diagnosis for this because it's insane. And it especially in this world, this is not to defend anybody, in the ABC or even us, but it what comes across your desk for education, for all kinds of things is um, you think you've seen it all and the varieties that you're asked to judge, and you haven't. You're seeing another one that comes from we have a lot of students educated outside the U.S., outside of in Asia and Africa. And how do you judge that? And there are ways to do that, but it's not the ones we're used to. Um, so is this outside of are we just judging this? Um, are we not being flexible enough? Or is this within our purview that we it goes on beyond the boundary? And that's the judgment that people like Sherry and others have to make. And it's not an easy one. So I think that again, thank you because we're always learning. I'm still learning. I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm still learning. about the variations that come
Yeah.
across.
And I'll just add a note that, on the receiving end, like it was really difficult to kind of navigate, which, of course, it's certification, it's hard, but because the model is so built on like the MDiv model,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
and what is
Hmm.
familiar. And this is anecdotal. So like one of the Sikh chaplains who was just really amazing, could not get certified through BCCI, and like he went to SCA, understandably, because it's like, how do you assess this? Like, and the education model and like kind of the spirituality that's like built within. But anyhow, I'm grateful for your time, and I look forward to at least trying for SCA this year and then just seeing how I move forward with BCCI.
Well, I hope you will stick around in this process and keep talking. And if wherever you get certified, if you volunteer to be involved in the certification process, that would be a great gift.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I just would like to add to Sidra that we are a group of Muslim chaplains in higher education that we are really struggling to get the certification or to be certified as higher education chaplains. So we really wanted to be certified. That's why one of the things when we saw this AMC, the chaplaincy pathway certification, we just really jumped in and hopped. Our module is really different than the other traditions. So, like for example, I never took any. I didn't go to a theology school or an Islamic school, but I do have my EDD and master degree in a different major. So I wonder how that will be equivalent. And I didn't take CPE certification.
If I may add to that, I'm sorry I'm driving, so I couldn't put it in the chat. Thank you both for sharing. I think that I kind of have a similar experience. Last summer when I finished my fourth unit, I really was trying to see how I could be board certified, and the process was very difficult. And I think part of what made it difficult was because there was nobody that I could talk to. So I think that that was a little bit frustrating because like I ended up like having to email people, and people
Just
emailed
keep
me
it
back.
there.
People emailed me back saying like, no, you cannot have the equivalency, blah blah. And at the end, I just dropped it, and I feel sad because like it's something that I really want to do. But I guess the reason I'm adding my voice is I would want to encourage both of you to really have somebody who can be a, you know, like a contact person that is clearly stated on your websites that, you know, we could go to and like ask a question, because we're not following the regular route, and we have
Hmm.
specific questions that are not answered on the website. And this, by the way, was with the help of my CPA advisor, you know, leader. So it was extremely difficult, and I would like to try again as well. But thank you both for being here and sharing with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Because what it's making me think of is, we do in our national office, we do have two full-time certification coordinators that are there to answer questions, but I do feel like that there are it makes me curious about how comfortable they both feel in navigating all of our equivalencies and like answering all of those questions and thinking through and feeling like they're a supportive, helpful voice, right? Because there's 80% of the whole certification process that they know like the back of their hand, right? That they can guide and answer questions and do all these things. But I think where it always feels discouraging and like frustrating and uncertain is with some of these equivalency processes. And so thinking through who a real champion for the equivalency processes, and we do have people assigned to all these different areas to review it, right? But they're also volunteers like myself who are in volunteer positions to do some of these reviews, but having a paid professional that works for the organization that can be on the other end of a phone call at any point in time to really be able to help answer more questions is is something that I'm going to take back
Yeah.
to our
But
board.
Stacy, you all have a mentoring process too, right?
Yes, but yes. I mean, meaning that we've like have people that have been trained to be mentors for
Yeah,
candidates. Hmm.
yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if you have like a Muslim chaplain who went through this route in higher education. I know that the amount of education and knowledge, and I don't want to like underestimate or itemize the knowledge that you have, and we really benefit from your experience um, in that role. But really, for Muslim chaplains in higher education, I mean, it's in the hospital. It has certain um, uh, like steps to go through. In prison, it has but even in higher education, it's a new for Muslim chaplaincy.
Yeah.
So it has, and like you must be knowing that for us Muslim, like it's embedded in our culture, in our education since like we grow up. So it like so we just need somebody who really like went through the process or can like put a guidelines for a Muslim chaplaincy in higher education.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. But I think, like you said, higher education in a certified way is relatively new. And so right now, we need pioneers that we had in healthcare too, um, who will kind of pave the way and then be there to bring everybody else along. And that's true. And as I said,
Gonna watch the last video and then go to
okay,
Amal, I think you're on. Yeah, there you go.
I think mentioned before, we've just rolled out a first responder chaplaincy. We 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 had the same problem. Um, we can do training in it, but we need somebody who's already trained to train the trainers, and that was took us a long time to find those people. They're not evident, um, so that's not an excuse. I mean, we need to keep trying, and you're right, we need it, but it's going to take some pioneers. And if you find any pioneers, or you want to be a pioneer, I'm sure Stacy would talk to you, and so would I. Um, and that's what it's. But I think that's what it's going to take in some of these places.
I see two other questions I don't think we've addressed in the chat. So one person said, what about those of us who have more than 2 or 3 complete units of CPE from either, I'm assuming you were a CPE or a CPSP, worked in the field of either social work, AOD addiction field for years and helping them. So are you looking, so since we're requiring 4 units of CPE, but you only have 2 or 3 from one of those, are you asking if there's some work that you've done in social work or that would serve as like an equivalent? Is that what I'm getting from that question?
in a way. But the truth is, when I decided to take CPE, I was already a drug counselor for like 18 years. And when I got out of that, I decided to try CPE because one of my friends who was a teacher in CPE, was a diplomat, said, "Hey, you would be good at this." And why
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that in my reality is, when I was young, I was a professional student. If you know what that means, I took all these classes, but I wasn't really looking for a degree. But
Mm-hmm.
I have classes. And when I decided to become a drug counselor, I've done that for many years. So when I took CPE, it was like I outstripped everybody else because I've already counseled people for
Yeah.
18 years. I knew what was expected. What was new for me was when they introduced that I had to journey with the client or the consumer and see how they feel. I mean, that part was new, but I fell into that too. So I'm trying to figure out how to person like a person that does have a social degree or a psychology degree or whatever it is, or has years of experience, get to be board certified, since all I see is how shall I say it, the educational part. And the reason I'm asking this is that I worked, I guess you would say verbatim, at a hospital for a year, but because I didn't have a degree, they hired somebody else a year later who came with the degree.
Mm-hmm.
And then they called me in to do the, how shall I say it, to do the free work.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, they'd send me to the drug floors, the psychology, you know, floors, because he wasn't, I mean, he had all these degrees, but he wasn't used to dealing with people with this amount of trauma, etc. And once I realized that they were getting work out of me for free, I said, no, I'm not doing it no more.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not, you know, and but they were very good. But I'm saying, what about those of us like me?
Mm-hmm.
If we want to get certified and we have work experience, and school is great, but the reality is, are you able to journey with this client or this consumer? Is the real question.
Mm-hmm.
Because schooling is nice, but it does not take the place of experience. So what about those of us who have great experience but don't have the shall we say, the educational qualifications?
And what would you say to that, George?
Yeah, I was about to leave it to you, Stacy.
I know you were. That's why I
Uh,
asked you folks
the
first.
it's an excellent question and one to which I do not have an answer. I think the dilemma, and I've thought about this a lot, is how do we be fair and just and say that everybody who gets board certification has all the same stuff? Um, and well, they let him off. You let Javier off. You didn't let me off. You didn't let him off. How do we deal with that justly and fairly? And on the one hand, and still be fair to somebody like you. And I don't have an answer to that question, but I
I
think
understand.
it's a great question. And you know, I wish we could better test at. We can test the knowledge test. We could get you in and sit you down in front of our multiple choice questions, and you probably know most of it, and you could get the rest. We had the same problem with nurses who come in. They've been a nurse and now they're coming for CPE. It's exactly the same. Well, I don't know exactly, but it's the same. We need to work at that more, and because our patients are missing somebody like you who could be benefiting them and the profession because of our so I hear you, and believe me, it's something I think about, but I don't have an
Yeah.
answer yet. Is
I
that
can
is that
work with yet.
helpful? What?
I said I can work with yet.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think
One other question, and then I think we're getting real close to the end of our time. I know we've got to log off in
yeah.
about 7 minutes. After taking 36 credits, what would be the easier path to complete 72 credits? I'm not sure. I'm not sure where, your context, where you are, what you have access to. Whoever asked that question, is there anything else you might want to say? I mean, there are many institutions that are developing chaplaincy specific, programs that are ranging, from different levels of hours that are making up their programs. There's some secular schools. Georgia State University has one where they're doing a program. I know Virginia Commonwealth University, like there's some different things kind of popping up, and then obviously some of the different theological schools again, but I'm not as familiar kind of again, your own particular context and what people have literal access to as far as time, as far as money, as far as just being able to, to get more credits to work towards that. So
Yeah. And um, yeah, it doesn't solve your credit problem, but I was going to say there are institutions now that will give you credits for a, for experience towards a master's degree, say. And so you come with this kind of experience, they'll give you 10 credits. I don't know. I'm making up numbers out of my head. And those exist. And that might be a faster way to a master's degree for you. And I don't even have a name to suggest to you, but I know those places exist.
Will a certification from, I think, BIS, Boston Islamic Seminary School, like they do have a chaplaincy certificate that it's not credited yet, will the hours count?
I'm guessing yes, but I'd have to look at them.
Yeah,
I'm
the same.
sorry. Geez, Stacy probably for this too. Send me a transcript.
Okay.
And
Or
I
I'll send you the program
that's
guidelines.
right. Yeah. It's not that I don't believe you. I just
Right. And that's what a lot of we're doing is that as some of these programs are coming up, where people are sending them to us and our commission to be able to review and be able to see how that in and of itself works into the list that we already have going. So yeah, I would suggest that for either of our organizations.
yeah.
Okay. Can you just drop in your emails or a website?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Wait a minute. I'm not finding it. Hold on.
All right. Well, I know that we had talked before we started that we really both had a hard stop at 30 minutes after the hour. So I don't see any new questions coming in, but Mira, is there anything else you want to say to close us out?
No, just
George, go for it.
I just thank you for your time. This is an exciting development for me. I've Mira mentioned Yusuf Hassan. I worked on Yusuf Hassan as the first Muslim certified in this country, and I was his mentor. So, an achievement I'm very proud of. So, um, email me. I'm very good at responding to emails eventually.
Thank you all so much for your time today, and hopefully this will help, kind of have a little bit more of a personal touch to this journey for so many of our chaplains who are going the unconventional route to chaplaincy certification. So thank you all so, so much. And, if you think of something or if you want to share more contact info, we'll happily share that with whoever was present later on.
Great.
So
Thank you for the
everybody.
invitation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mira.
All right.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to currently in this new Zoom, it won't allow us to make a copy from the chat.